Hello again from Metro Manila, the Philippines, Southeastern Asia. Let's look at what Mexico has been doing and has not been doing to help the United States on its part to solve the crisis of hundreds of thousands of migrants per year trying to cross the US-Mexican border. It is certainly not true, contrary to what Donald Trump claimed while visiting a portion of the border and of the border wall which is being built back in September 2019, that the Mexico has done nothing to keep those migrants from reaching the United States. It has tightened its controls on its southern border, but it hasn't done enough. That is what he should have said. So let's look at an article published in Washington Post on June the 1st, 2019. So it's somewhat outdated because over 5.5 months have passed since June the 1st, but it's not very outdated. So the article is entitled, "What is Mexico doing and not doing to keep migrants from crossing into the US?" And of course, we could pose the same question to the United States. Well, the United States overall has done much more than Mexico, granted, but even it hasn't done everything humanly possible. And besides, we have to remember the fact that illegal immigrants come to the United States also in isolated cases, or in some cases through the Gulf of Mexico, despite the usually vigilant US Coast Guard, through the long and winding eastern coast on the North Atlantic, and also through the Pacific coast, which is also long, and perhaps in some occasional cases even through the Arctic Alaskan coast or coasts. This article is written by Kevin Seif, spelled S-I-E-F-F. The Mexican president, Mr. Andrés Manuel López Obrador, who, by the way, is a left-winger social democrat, ran for office and he was elected in July 2018, took office in December 2018, preaching the need to respect the rights of migrants. But since he took office in December 2018, his administration has attempted to prove both to the Trump administration and to Central American asylum seekers that it will not allow unencumbered passage through Mexico. For years before López Obrador took office, Mexico deported large numbers of Central American migrants, more even than the United States. From January 2015 to September 2018, Mexico deported over 436,000 Guatemalans, Salvadorans, and Hondurans. Deportations by Mexican authorities have increased compared with the same period in 2018, according to the latest statistics. Between January and April 2019, Mexico deported over 37,000 migrants, according to its immigration agency. It has become more antagonistic toward migrant caravans, which in 2018 traveled through Mexico with relative freedom. Now, many of those traveling with caravans are forced to apply for transit passes before they can continue a process that has dramatically slowed the movement of such groups. Has President Trump noted this change? Hardly, at least hardly in his Twitter or other public statements. In recent months, meaning basically in the first half of 2019, those migrants have protested in front of Mexico's immigration offices, calling the country xenophobic. What has Donald Trump done about this? Nothing. We have to make a response because there cannot continue to be hundreds of thousands of migrants passing through Mexico and arriving at the northern border, Interior Minister Olga Sanchez Cordero said when a caravan began to form in March 2019. In a letter to Trump on Thursday, so the last Thursday of May 2019, López Obrador wrote that the White House knew Mexico was working to avoid passage through our country. But tens of thousands of Central Americans, mostly from Guatemala and Honduras, and mostly traveling with smugglers, still journey through Mexico each month. US officials say Mexico is not doing enough to secure its southern border with Guatemala, or to crack down on the private bus companies that ferry migrants through the country, usually accompanied by their smugglers. White House press secretary at that time, Sarah Sanders, she has since resigned, said on May the 31st, 2019, that Mexico needs to do more to stop the flow of undocumented migrants crossing into the US. While I basically agree, she should also have said that Mexico has started to do more. And she should at least have thanked Mexico for having finally tried to slow down this traffic. To address this crisis, Mexico must take significant action to secure their southern border, stop the unlawful flow of migrants across their territory, and attack the criminal groups preying on vulnerable migrants and profiting from these smuggling enterprises, said Acting Homeland Security Secretary Kevin McAleenan. Mexico's 570-mile, let's get the kilometer figure, border with Guatemala is largely porous. In other words, can be crossed in many places, which is very regrettable, of course. Let's see. I'm not. So 570 miles is 917 kilometers. With people visibly swimming back and forth across the Suchiate River that separates the two countries, and with Mexican officials typically looking the other way. So this is something that absolutely should stop. Over the past year, smugglers have turned to informal border crossings in the southern Mexican state of Chiapas, which migrants traverse on their way to main bus routes. We fully believe they have the ability to stop people coming from their southern border, McAleenan said. But the question is to the respectable, hopefully respectable and responsible Acting Homeland Security Secretary, could the United States perhaps help Mexico as well? Many of the migrants are traveling with their families. Over 75,000 families have traveled through Mexico on their way to the United States border in May 2019, according to McAleenan. Mexican officials say that while the country's southern border remains porous, immigration agents and other security officials have set up highway checkpoints along main corridors where buses and trailers are inspected. In some cases, though, Mexican immigration officials have been found accepting bribes in exchange for allowing the passage of those without documentation. And this is deeply regrettable and something that should be stopped. But I don't honestly believe that all such US officials are totally incorruptible, given the human nature. Perhaps most dramatically, the United States in recent months has begun forcing many asylum applicants to wait in Mexico while their cases are processed. Over 5,000 people have been processed so far under the Remain in Mexico policy, which is meant to keep migrants from living and working in the United States while they await their court dates. The Mexican government said it had no choice but to comply with the policy, and it has accepted the asylum seekers, who in many cases are housed and fed in Mexican migrant shelters. Okay, so this was the brief article.